Hello, good evening, yes, and good evening, and welcome to something totally different. Seems to be having a bit of blues. I thought we might as well come on in the kitchen. So here I am in the kitchen with Ms. Bella Collins.
Good evening.
Good to have you here.
Lovely to be
We've
here.
been busily writing for the last 2 days. And we discovered something very, very interesting. We are normally classified as blues performers, and we've proved it today because we failed dismally to write a happy song.
We can't write a happy song.
We can't write a happy song. We struggled with it for, I don't know, 2-3 hours.
Yeah, we tried.
We tried. We even got to the point where it was starting to sound a little bit like
a song.
A song for a start, yeah. But also it was starting to sound a little bit Beatles-ish, with sort of like Penny Lane sort of vibe to it, people, characters in it, all sorts of things happening. And then I said something and said, I don't think we'll ever perform this song, even if we finish it. And Bella said the same. She said, yeah, I was thinking that about half an hour ago, but we ploughed on regardless. But
brave choice, though.
It was a brave choice.
Admit.
Because it's one of those things that, something. I think it's something that you get at school, to start with. You start a book, you should finish it.
Yeah.
And that's just reading it, let alone bloody writing it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I thought, well, actually, we might as well, because we've got the structure right. We've got chords in there. We know how the melody works. We just haven't got any words.
Yeah.
It's just happy.
What's another word for happy? Don't know.
Farrell. Farrell's done it right, so I don't think we can beat that one. So here we are at the end of the day with a refreshing glass of
cheers.
Okay, beer and a large gin and tonic.
Water.
Yeah, sure. So here we are. Now, bit of history here. Bella and I met on a songwriting retreat back in May in Sparkford, and we were teamed together for the first day with Trisha, who will hopefully be watching in, and it just worked, didn't it?
Just clicked.
Yeah, it was
right.
It was, yeah. It was scary, really, but because the night before we'd just busked something,
mm-hmm.
and Chris Difford, who was running it, said. In fact, he said it. He asked me later in the week again. He said, "Had you never met before then?" I said, "No, not till the other night." And then he asked me again on a Thursday. He said, "You mean never? You never rehearsed?" No. And I've got no idea how it worked, but it did. So,
yeah.
So we had a great day, and now we're trying to do it again.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So we're here to talk about songs and songwriting. So. When did it all start for you then?
Oh, well, so music has always been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And one of my earliest memories, and the thing that just sparked my interest in music, was an Otis Redding. I think it was a cassette as opposed to a CD, and. Otis, Dock of the Bay was what I remember, and other things. And I hold Otis responsible for making me fall in love with music, and realised that was what at that early age, it wasn't a sort of a life choice. It was just I fell in love with it, and then I always played fantastic music growing up. Neither of my parents are musicians, but. There was always fantastic music playing in the house, and one of my mum's favourites, Van Morrison, and because my mum was obsessed with Van, then I thought I'm not interested. I don't want to hear that. So my mum wanted
that old teenage reaction thing, yeah.
And then I got to I don't know what age, but suddenly it just clicked, and I just was like, oh, I get it, and it was mad because then by the time I decided. I didn't have to be too cool to not like something my mum wanted. Being Van, I knew all the songs already because they'd been played to me growing up. And weirdly, Van has connections to Cardiff, so that was one example of me. My view and the way I looked at songs and songwriting obviously changed because I suddenly had this appreciation for what a good song was. But yeah, it goes back, I'd say, to Otis, and then from there I got into that vine of music, and then eventually discovered when I was old enough what Stax was,
right,
for example. And I think that was my way into the blues, really. And band I mentioned earlier to you, a local Cardiff band, Snatch It Back. And I have so much to owe to these local bands. This is why it's so important to keep live music, local live music live, because that was another turning point where I thought, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Seeing people playing music and having that on your doorstep. And there was a blues band, local Cardiff blues band, Snatch It Back. And they used to run a jam night. And and I already had this interest in blues, and of course jazz came then late from that. And I'd say I probably.
So when did you actually start playing it?
I started playing it.
Yeah.
I always sang in choirs. I always played guitar. Well, I always played guitar. I did always sing in choirs from a very young age. I think I started playing guitar when I was very young as well. Initially, I had piano lessons, but I wanted.
Doesn't everybody in Wales?
Yeah, but I wanted to. I really wanted to play guitar, and I must have been very, very young. I don't know what I was, but that big, really young. And there was a local music school, and they said, no, she can't play guitar. We can't give her guitar lessons because she's too young. Her hands are too small. They won't fit. And I kept on and on and on. I'd go to these piano lessons and didn't, now I wish I'd stuck to the piano and would love to be a better piano player. But I kept on and on to the point where they said, right, we'll give her a chance. And they gave me this trial. And this I do remember. They gave me this sort of trial guitar lesson with a teacher there. He was a Norwegian guy. And that was it. They said, oh, actually, yes, she can reach the frets. So that was the start of it. And I was allowed to have guitar lessons. And and I remember it was, I don't remember how I first learned to play chords, but it was songs like Yellow Submarine.
Yep. Fair enough.
A Wild Thing, that was my introduction to playing guitar. And then in terms of writing, I probably, when I was really young, I jotted down in books, poems or cheesy things, and thought I was writing songs. But in terms of actually really writing, I probably was when I developed the understanding and appreciation of music, like the Van Morrison moment. So I'd say probably about 14, 15. And that was it then. I was in. I was in, and it was a creative outlet, and it wasn't even a choice. I don't think I suddenly said, right, I'm going to write songs. It was a natural.
Yeah, I think the thing was there was a huge change that happened essentially through the Beatles. Yeah, was that up until the Beatles, songwriters and performers are two different groups of people. Sinatra never wrote anything. Well, he put his name to a few things, but whether he actually contributed very much, I don't know. Same with Presley. The songwriters were a different group of people. The performers are the people who interpreted their material. And it was only when the Beatles came along, and I know I've mentioned this in the past. There's
two became one.
Yeah, but there's a book in I think it's a publication called Wobbaloo, and the guy's sort of thesis in this book is that the Beatles were one of the worst things to happen to popular music, not because they were bad, but because they were too good, and they were so good that people took music seriously, took pop music seriously. Because up until that point, I think it was Gershwin who said that the art of songwriting is saying I love you in 32 bars, right? And that's all that mattered. Whereas suddenly we have people reading, deep and meaningful thoughts into pop songs, rightly or wrongly, and that's when it all changed. And suddenly people, and also the other thing that happened is that people realised how much money there was in it. I mean, early Stone stuff was other people's material. And it was their manager, was it Andrew Loog Oldham, I think he was called, said, you've got to get into writing because that's where the money is.
Mm.
And after that, it was Jagger Richards.
Yeah, funny enough, actually, you saying that sparked a memory. I remember being at one of these jam nights I mentioned earlier, and a guy named Craig, a well-known, if anyone's tuning in from Cardiff and knows the scene, we all know Craig Burton. He was on Top of the Pops back in the day. But he actually I must have been about 15, 16, about 16. And he said in his thick Cardiff accent, "You got to write your own songs, girl. That's where the money is." And I think that must have been a bit of a push in that direction. But apart from that, I wasn't told to do it in terms of, that's the only time I recall being pushed towards writing. And I was just, when you were saying that, certainly I said to, whilst teaching youngsters last week music, we were discussing how much more rewarding it is actually playing something you've made up, in terms of the, because we had a bunch of kids that were really keen to play music and they're playing their covers, and we kind of said, right, do you want to write something of your own, or and that was the harder task. And they weren't all keen, but it was like the ones that, they all did it, and the rewarding, you could see it in them and also on us as the teachers. So much, it's yours. You're playing something that is completely yours.
And
even if no one ever else hears it, that's yours.
It doesn't matter. Okay, what are you going to play for us first? Oh, hang on a moment. Before, this is kind of tricky, so we've never done one like this before, but I can see there's comments coming up there, so I should actually see who's saying hello. Who have we got? Paul Bailey. Hello, Paul. Don't know that name. And Maria Chiara Verdacchi. Ciao, Chiara.
Ciao.
Guess where she lives? Italy. Yes, dear friend. So, what's the first song going to be?
Okay, so I've made some notes earlier of songs that I have written that may be interesting to talk about. I'm going to play a song called Part-Time Lover first. And it's a bit of a gypsy jazz kind of feel. But the reason this is maybe a good one to play, right guitar, absolutely. This is Rowland's guitar. Saved me bringing him on the train. Is we can talk about this in terms of, this was a song I wrote quite quickly, and it doesn't always happen. So shall I play it and then we'll discuss that afterwards?
Yes, go on.
Okay. Will you be my part-time backdoor lover? Will you only hold me when I say I ain't asking for your love forever? See me through these lonesome nights and days. You don't have to tell me that you love me. I want someone that I can talk to lonely. You don't have to stay with me forever. Just kiss me and you'll be on your way. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. Love's the only thing I'm guilty of. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. Love's the only thing I'm guilty of. When the morning comes around baby. Be my guest and leave without a sound. If you feel it's time to hit the road, boy, worry about me, worrying about you. You don't have to tell me that you love me. I want someone that I can talk to bluntly. You don't have to stay with me forever. Just kiss me quick and you'll be on your way. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. Love's the only thing I'm guilty of. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. I can love's the only thing I'm guilty of. You don't have to tell me that you love me. I want someone that I can talk to bluntly. You don't have to stay with me forever. Just kiss me quick and you'll be on your way. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. Love's the only thing I'm guilty of. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. Love's the only thing I'm guilty of. Well, I don't wanna fall in love. Well, I don't wanna fall in love.
Yeah. Nice one. Love it.
Thank you very much.
Love it. So how did that come about then?
Right, so my memory's not great on all of these things. Following all sorts of car crash, maybe. But actually, singing it then, thinking about the words, forced me to think about why I wrote the words. And I think it's a bit of an anti-love song, isn't it? I don't want to fall in love.
Yeah.
I wrote this a long time ago. I can only assume that at the time.
Yeah, I'm forgetting one-night stands, basically. Yeah. Comments and £5 note, please.
Yeah. No judgment here.
No judgment here.
Yeah, I think if I was to guess what I was thinking when I wrote this, I think it would have been maybe I was sick of hearing love songs,
Yeah.
and all, the soppy side of it, because it's essentially saying, don't worry about the love.
Yeah. Get out of the nitty gritty.
Yeah, let's hook up. But the reason this is interesting, because I do remember that I wrote it very quickly, which you can never force, which we found out today.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about that in a second. But that's a very common,
Yeah.
There's plenty I could sing over that, and you could say, maybe it was during the time I was getting into Louis Jordan as well. Louis Prima. Is you is or is you ain't my baby?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of feel. And I know as well, Cara Emerald.
Oh yeah. Sings on the cutting room floor.
Yeah,
Great
around
album.
about that the time I wrote that.
Yeah.
And that's very similar feel in terms of that electro swing.
I think I said that to Leslie when I first heard you play it. I
Yeah.
It sounds like Caroline wants.
Yeah, so that's a common comment I've had when I played it. In people have.
It's not a comment; it's a compliment.
Thank you very much. But yeah, it's funny because one of my aims is and always has been, and nobody taught me to want this, but I've never wanted to sound like anyone else. But we are a product of our influences, I suppose. And
absolutely, yeah.
And
also, I think that people like to associate.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's like that thing, isn't it? You meet someone and you find out they're a musician, and you say, "Well, so what sort of stuff do you play?" And you know full well they don't know how to answer it, because when they ask you the same question, you're going to go, "Well, it's hard to describe." Really.
Yeah.
But we like labels.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you know, you like to be able to say, "Well, that's country." I mean, I've had people say to me, "Well, you're too country to be bluesy, you're too jazzy to be bluesy, and you're not bluesy enough to be bluesy."
Yeah.
You know, it's
yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I think, especially.
I would like to explain at this point that the weird noises you hear in the background are actually the seats and the chairs.
Oh yes.
Not us two. Okay, just to point that out.
Squeakiest cheeks.
The
squeakiest
cheeks.
That was chairs and seats.
Okay, right,
sorry.
that's close. Right. So yeah, it's I think people like that thing. You know, what sort of thing do you play? And yeah, we all do it.
Yeah, I think, and there's two schools of thought on it, because I was just about to say the album I recorded 2016, I think it was now. One of my criticisms of it is the fact that kind of jumps all over the place with genres. You can't pigeonhole it because there's that's gypsy feel on that. There's some really swampy blues on there. There's some more soulful things, and then there's acousticy, folky stuff on there. Yeah. And at the time, I thought, right, there's a lack of direction there, and that's not good. But other people have said, well, that's great, because it shows off different, well, not shows off, but
shows different influences.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think still to this day, I'm trying to find some sort of uniform with the way that I write and play. But
I think as long as it's true to what you are.
Exactly what I was going to say. I think if your stamp, is so strong, so it could be distinctive voice or that in itself, there's your style. Yeah, because if people can recognise it as your song. And
I mean, the other thing is there's so much different. There's sort of confusion about what is what. I mean, I've spoken to lots of musicians about this, and people say, we'd like to have a jazz band for our wedding. And what they mean is they want George Benson and Kenny G, in their most commercial of periods. What they don't want is, a serious horn player and somebody who sounds like Bill Evans on piano. That's not what they want at all.
And jazz is such an umbrella term.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And when people say, I don't like jazz, people say, well, what do you sing? Like, we'll say jazz. Oh, I'm not a jazz fan. Yeah. Well, my response is always, which bit of jazz? Because, there is there's things within jazz that I'm not keen on. Yeah. I don't call myself not a fan of jazz.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it's that desire just to be able to say, she sounds a bit like this, or he sounds like a bit like that, and it's But
the thing with that song was that I do remember, and actually a couple of the ones I put down, I wrote them very quickly, and I think that's, you can, as we did today, could spend hours trying to force something out, or there could be a baseline idea there, or and you get nowhere.
As we were saying earlier, we battled with this happy song today, and finally came to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work. And even if we had finished it, we would never ever perform it. But then we sat down, and in about 25 minutes, we kind of busked a bluesy, gospelly,
and not finished in the sense of we need to write some words,
but a structure for a song which is pretty defined, really,
and it's in keeping with us.
Back
to what we were
both
saying
really
about
comfortable with it.
Being true to your true to yourself. And,
I think that's a big part of it, because Otherwise, what are you doing it for?
Yeah. And I find it very hard to sing things that I don't believe, or I think it's very important when singing my own songs that I want the audience to know that I mean every word.
Yeah.
And that connection, or that to move someone is high up on my priorities list. And you can't do that if you're faking it. And when I say move someone, okay, we could make someone dance with something funky.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to those meaningful things, you've got to feel it. You've got to feel it.
Yeah, we had a little bit of discussion about this the other day, saying that we I'm sure that many other people would say the same thing. If you're writing songs, you can spend hours agonizing over this word or that word. And you fettle it, and then you take the song out and you play it a few times, and you suddenly think, no, that's still not right. And you eventually change it, and you think, right, that sounds right now. But then you realize that nobody who's heard that song in the previous 3 or 4 months will have noticed this difference.
Yeah.
But it makes it more complete. For me, it makes it feel better because I've actually, sorted it out in my own mind.
Yeah.
So I think it does come back to that thing you were saying about teaching the kids is an immense personal satisfaction in doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is great. Can't do that bad. So when you were writing that, then, and do you have a? I mean, I know a little bit about it now, but do you have an approach to songs?
Well,
I mean, first question: do you ever consider yourself as a disciplined writer, or do you write for an album, or do you think, right, I'm going to write a song a week, or?
Well, I think lots of different things work for me, and I can't really predict when they're going to work.
Which will work,
if we're talking about that album, there was one track. Follow Me, and it came out. I say it came out. I wrote it almost by accident, and it ended up on the album. And it was written sort of the days leading up to going to the studio. So, and I hadn't sat down to write. It wasn't like we were missing a song. We didn't need, but it happened. And then in other cases, if I've got pressure, time pressure, I think that makes me.
Yeah.
I think I do perform well under the restraints of which is bad. I don't use that as an excuse, but I think that's something that's carried through other aspects of my life as well.
Yeah, sure it is.
It's a procrastination problem, probably.
But the thing about it, though, I think I said this to you before, that I did an album a couple of years ago, and I've written 5 or 6 songs, and we'd already recorded we'd done the basic tracking on them. We hadn't finished them at all. But then I was going away on holiday for 3 weeks, and I decided before I went on holiday that we were not going to do an EP, but we're going to do an album. So basically I had 3 weeks to write 5 songs, which I was on holiday, so there wasn't too much pressure on me in that sense, because our time was our own. But the funny thing is that I recorded the songs, and I do like them, but I don't think there's one I've never performed live, at least. I think there's probably 2 I've never performed live, and another couple which I've only performed once or twice.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably because I didn't kind of road test them before recording them.
No, that's something we've discussed before. I think, luckily, the one I just mentioned that went on the album last minute, it was I play it now as I recorded it, and it was quite a finished piece. It came out like that. But
we did that at the festival, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Whereas other songs, in terms of talking about recording them and then road testing them, I learned a massive lesson in that I'd like to play something, at least even, play through it with the band or play live a good few times before taking it in the studio, because I think songs evolve. They have a life of their own. There's one song I mentioned to you that when we recorded it, it didn't have a chorus, and I didn't at the time think it missed the chorus. It was a rock and roll thing, and suddenly now it's got a chorus.
Mm.
And then going back to what you said about do I have an approach? I can be quite. I like a formula in terms of seeing things in front of me, but sometimes it could, like some people obviously like to go with lyrics first or melody first. It could be either for me.
Yeah.
And so I find if the music's there first, then quite often music tells me what the song's about.
And indicates the melody.
Yeah.
As well. Like the first one we did yesterday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can infer the melody, but also I've got things that I've held on to for years, little runs or progressions that I have no idea what they're about until it comes to, they tell me, there's one I'll play in a minute. I had it for years. I had a chorus, and didn't know what it was about. And then eventually, it told me. And then also that thing of...
Okay, how many of you out there who write songs are thinking, been there.
Yeah.
Got the notebooks full of ideas.
I've got hundreds of, probably hundreds of unfinished...
Yeah.
Well, hundreds of certainly one-liners, but then actual things that I've started and just... So, one day it'll come to me. What should happen with this one?
Yeah, well, I keep doing the same with clips off my phone.
Yeah.
And going back through them and thinking, well, there's only 150 more from that batch. I think in the last 5 years, I've offloaded a total of, I think, about 450 different snippets.
Wow.
Because the phone is getting so full. I think, I'll dump those off onto my laptop. And then I forget about them.
I know. Well, I have a plan to do my audit and work out what I've got.
You're saying it in front of all these people.
I know. I have to do it now.
Witnesses.
I need to go through everything that I've started and either finish them or bin them off. Yeah. But then, so this completely, I approach songs differently, and also some songs come quickly, some take years, I suppose. But once I'm on a bit of a roll, I tend to get through it.
Through them,
yeah. Once I know what it's about, I tend to be able to, and then lyrics. I think even to this day, there's songs that I've recorded and are already out there that I think, I'll have to improve that line.
Yeah.
There's always a better line that could be there, and I beat myself up over chucking in lines for the sake of it, or just for fillers at the time, and then they stick.
We're our own worst critics, aren't we? Yeah.
And it's also hard to forget. I think there's a song that during lockdown that I won't play it because I can't. There's still no real lyrics to it, and the words are, "I hope we don't get locked in because of catching the corona," and that was just gibberish to that I would replace with lyrics later. I can't unhear those words now.
Yeah.
And do you know the band Budgie?
Yeah.
So Burke Shelley he actually passed away this year, a dear friend of mine. And I remember years ago him sitting in his garden and him telling me that if he's writing a song, he'll write about beans and eggs, That's
McCartney.
Yeah, that's what he takes that approach.
There's a parallel story about that actually, that in filmmaking, quite often what they'll do is if the film editor will say it needs a piece of music to be cut into, they will get a piece of already existing music, cut to that, and then present it to the composer, who will actually compose a piece that fits with that, in terms of the tempo and everything else. And the story that I read in 2001 in the film, there's a scene where all the spaceships are sort of rotating around the moon, and it's a Strauss waltz. Well, apparently what had happened was the editor was looking for something to edit these two, and he used the Strauss waltz, and the director looked at it and said, yeah, that's great, I like that. I said, yeah, okay, well, we'll get the music. No, I'd like that music. And that's what they did. And that's what they used in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes things stick.
Yeah. So,
And sometimes there's a reason they stick, and you've got to kind of trust.
you trust that it's okay. Yeah. Okay, I think we should have another song. What do you reckon, people?
Okay. Hang on then. Carrying on then from this conversation, I'm going to play a song called On My Own Again, because this is one that I had this sort of hook for years, but never got around to finishing it.
Right.
And it wasn't until actually during lockdown, and a friend of mine was living with me, my drummer, and I don't know if we sat down to work on it or it just we ended up playing it by accident, and that was all I needed was that moment, and I suddenly wrote the rest of the song. Lyrics, just started reeling off.
Yep.
But yeah, you can't force it, I suppose. Right, I'm going to sip this water now. I'm changing glass.
Yeah, change your glass.
So yeah, this one's called On My Own Again. Heading down west for a couple of nights. I ain't got nothing but myself, it's a pride. Oh, I'm on my own again. Oh, I'm on my own again. Nowhere to be and I got no one to see. I ain't got you, so I can focus on me. Oh, I'm on my own again. I said, oh, I'm on my own again. I can't help you, I gotta help myself. This is my time, I got nothing left for you. For you. For you. For you. But I've been running on empty ever since you left me, getting back on my feet. Just you with Nancy. Oh, I'm on my own again. I said, oh, I'm on my own again. I'll sleep by the water till my head is in order, then I'll smoke some more, making my life shorter. Oh, I'm on my own again. I said, oh, I'm on my own again. Yeah, I'm gonna sleep by the water till my head is in order, then I'll smoke some more, making my life shorter. Oh, I'm on my own again. I said, oh, I'm on my own again. I can't help you, I gotta help myself. This is my time, I got nothing left for you. For you. For you. For you. Well, I've been running on empty ever since you left me. Well, I've been running on empty ever since you left me. I've been running on empty ever since you left me. Well, I've been running on empty ever since you left me.
Excellent.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Yeah, we played that one as well, haven't we?
Yeah. That was a kind of edited version, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's another thing I was going to mention about songs that have to be adapted if you're playing them on your own.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, some things work with a band, some things don't.
Yeah.
But I think so long as it stands up,
Yeah.
just a voice and a guitar, a voice and a piano, then you're on.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
if it doesn't stand up alone.
That was the intention with this whole idea, to be honest. I mean, because the first two of these I did were as live shows.
Right.
Yeah, in a venue in Manchester, and they were great fun. And we got a really nice venue where there was it was a restaurant downstairs, and upstairs there was a separate bar, and we just had that room, which meant that if people came upstairs, because it was a bar downstairs as well, people came upstairs, they were there to listen to the music.
Mm-hmm.
And basically I sat down with a guest, and I played a song, they played a couple of songs, I played some, it sort of alternated. Then the second half they did a 40-minute set.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea was, as far as I was concerned, that I didn't want sort of produced, I didn't want to play produced music. I wanted something that sounds, you know, raw as it's been constructed.
Yeah, I think it's important, the early days of a song, seeing as we're talking about songwriting, it's important to have that time alone with it. Sort of.
You know, I think so.
And that's not saying, I mean, I think it's equally important to then take it to the band, if you're working with a band. And then it will develop even further.
Yeah, creaking loud.
The chairs, the sheets, the cheats. Number one, it will develop again once you're with the band, but also I think you can get caught up in it thinking it's good enough because there's a nice bass and drum groove over it, so you think, oh, it's fine. But it's important to really lock it in to a good state before you take it to the next level. You know, the next stop on the journey of the song, if you know what I mean.
That makes sense.
And it may not be, you know, you may not work with a band. It may be that you take it to someone else.
Does it differently.
Or
the thing
or you may not need that at all. You may not need that outside influence. You know, sometimes you just know.
And it works.
Yeah.
I mean, another one, we came back to Manchester. I had a residency for a couple of months in Manchester itself, and we had hence why the band got called the Movable Feast, because it was a different band every week, effectively. But it was amazing how different musicians, although we were playing the same material, how different musicians took it in a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
The drummers, for example, I had one of the guys that I was fortunate against, a guy called Mikey Wilson, who worked with Corin Bailey Ray. Corin Ray Bailey, I can't remember. Bailey Ray. Great, really funky drummer. And then I worked with another at the time he was very young drummer who was quite tentative, but a great delicate feel, and that was a different feel again.
Yeah.
So, you know, coupling like that drummer with that bass player and that.
Yeah.
It just changed it, but it was still the same song.
Yeah.
But the groove would move it maybe slightly faster, slightly slower, more less funky. You know.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
The influence that, especially drummers, I think that they are kind of. I mean, I see the drums and basses as a unit.
Yeah,
they must be.
Yeah.
But if the rhythm section takes it a different direction, it could, you know, becomes something. In fact, something that I read years ago, I'm believing it, is that when Bob Dylan writes a song, I'm sure someone out there watching can check if this is true, but apparently when he writes a song, he then takes it to the band and says, right, we're going to try this in different time signatures, different feels. We'll try it with a Latin feel, try it with a jazzy feel, and play through it until it feels right. And I don't know how true that is, but I can understand why you do it.
I can understand the logic.
Maybe not every, you know, like I said, some songs you just know they're there. That's how it's meant to be. But if you were, you know,
and given Dylan's background, then the chances are there's going to be quite a lot of stuff that will just stand on its own full stop.
Absolutely, yeah. But I've discussed that approach with other people, and I know other people have do that with their songs. They try at different times,
Mm.
different tempos, different times, different a funky feel on something, you know, and it finds its way. You know, you suddenly think, right, that's where it should be.
Yeah, I've experience of that with I had a gig lined up with the trio, so that's me, bass and percussion, and Ian couldn't come, so we had a run through with another percussionist, Laurie, who's a great player, but and you know, to the untutored ear in percussion is lots of things you hit, an end of story sort of thing, but we tried running through songs using different percussion.
Right.
So some of it he did on cajon, and some of it he did on congas, and you know, it was amazing the difference it made, because obviously with the way percussion works is that certain instruments have their own rhythmic patterns that they use, you know, and the difference between the two, exactly the same song, me and Bo were playing exactly the same. Well, not quite, but you know what I mean. And then the difference between the conga rhythm, which is a more sort of continuous rhythm, as opposed to cajon, which is closer to a kick drum and snare sound.
Yeah,
it was just remarkable. Yeah, and that's a simple example. You know, it's
and then all these different layers
very much so.
Create. Well, take the song over.
Well, do you think a lot about when you're writing? Because I mean, in fairness, my experience of co-writing is pretty limited, to be honest. I mean, apart from that week that we're working together, I think I've worked with 2 other people, and it's in the past it's tended to be, well, you know, I'll write the music and he'll write the lyrics, or I've got some lyrics, and it's tend to be, you know, straight split. But is it just a result of the fact that we both sing, that today we all, even at the very early stage, we were thinking about harmonies?
Yeah. My songwriting, my co-writing experience is also, I'd say, pretty limited. The thing of taking songs to the band, yes, that's a writing experience.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, is it?
No, but I play in 2 duos, in particular, and again, there's different ways that work for the 2 different things. Certainly, my duo Sister Bodie, which is with Jodie Marie, check her out, or we're called Sister Bodie. We came together under funny circumstances, because it was completely almost by accident. We ended up getting up at Tenby Blues Festival at about 3 o'clock in the morning and playing, and the organizer of the festival said, I want to book you for the main stage next year. We said, well, we don't play together. We just have this mutual love of Bonnie Raitt. And
happy birthday, Bonnie Raitt.
Happy birthday, Bonnie Raitt. And we were both fans of each other, but we'd never played together before. So we said, okay then. Yeah. And it was getting closer and closer to the following year of this festival, and we had this gig on the main stage. So I don't know, a few months before the festival, we thought, right, we better start writing some songs. And the first, I'll play it in a minute, actually. This is a good reason to play it. The first song we wrote, it kind of just fell out of us. And immediately harmonies were there. It was kind of like that, it's similar match to us, that it's there. And already from the off, you're thinking in terms of the complete package. And then with Gareth, who I work with, we work a lot in the studio. He does a lot of producing of other types of music, hip hop and drum and bass, and we take a different approach. So he often comes to me with or we can start from a groove and build from there, and we'll write lyrics together. I think as co-writing goes, I suppose it's different with everyone you work with.
Yeah.
And obviously, I had the experience of that we shared in at the retreat, so working with other people as well. I think you kind of have to just let it take its own course, and it depends on the other people's.
It depends on lots of things. I'm sure you're right about that. The other thing for me is that it depends on how you approach the idea of songwriting. I mean, some people, full-time writers, some are dedicated to that, song a day, whatever, song a week thing, like the Brill building approach. And, when they do it in stacks and places like that, that's the way they worked. And there's some people who do it for enjoyment, who are the same. Trisha earlier on was saying Trisha was the third person that we worked with on this retreat. And but she's been doing this song a week challenge, and there were a couple of other people on the course who were doing it as well. And I think you have to be pretty damn disciplined to do that. I'm gonna have a go. I'm not sure.
I think it's very good for your discipline. If you've got the time to do it, great, because it keeps you creating, it keeps you on your toes. Yeah. And like Trish mentioned earlier, not all of them are going to maybe songs you take forward, but you're forcing yourself through the motions of writing. And you'll know, if you're writing 20 songs, there's sure to be some good ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's for somebody with talents at Stacks. They would write a song a day.
Yeah.
But most days it was like, okay, fine, bin that. And then come back and start again the following day and write something new. Which I can understand how it makes you better at doing it, but it must be the points of elation, the points of monotony must be really difficult. You know what I mean? There must be some weeks when you think, oh, God, am I ever going to get it?
Yeah. I'd love to be in a position where I could dedicate myself to it. That in such a everyday sense. And in some ways that's what I'm aiming to do, is to spend more time songwriting. But I don't know, it's quite a draining process, because it's if you care, then it's personal, and it's like both you and I yesterday, we felt exhausted. We hadn't been running around the park, we hadn't been doing anything physically sit-ups or anything, but we were drained, because it's you're giving yourself, and I imagine if doing that every day could be, and there's the danger of losing the love of it. It becoming a job. That's the other thing. And I know it's a job, but you know what I mean. It becomes a job with a capital J. It becomes a slog to just and it shouldn't be. And sometimes, well, like we did today, you got to say it's not happening with that one, and that could be the end of your day. You've got, or if it's not happening, go off and do. Well, I think I would have been disappointed if we hadn't done that last bit today. Because it's. But we had to go through that to get to it, and I think one of Chris Difford's tips was, if it's not happening, go make some cheese on toast, and it'll come to you. Or just leave it there for a minute and come back to it. Sounds good to me. Well, on that note, because I think oh no, gosh, time gone quickly again. It has, it does. Yeah, it's surprising how quick time goes when we work together. When the Welsh are together. In fact, there were three of us working together on the first day, and Trisha, the third member, decided that she should be Welsh to join with us, and developed a very convincing Cardiff accent at one point. It's funny how you develop a very strong Welsh accent as soon as we're together. Yeah, well, he is Welsh. Well, I told you that when Leslie and I went down to Aberystwyth for a weekend, we'd only been there for 24 hours, and we were talking like that. Anyway, it's been great. We've had a good couple of days. We've done some good stuff. Yeah. And it's been great talking to you tonight. Onwards and upwards. Onwards and upwards. More, please. So what's the last song? Well, I think I should finish with a Sister Bodhi song, seeing as we're talking about co-writing. Here's a perfect example a tried and tested one. This is when we perform, when we
Right.
play, we don't get to gig that often, but when we do, yeah. And this is interesting because it's a bit of a story. There's this, yeah. I'll just sing it, shall I?
Sounds good.
Stop talking about it. So this is called "You May Be Surprised," and please do check out Jodie Marie, the other half of this song.
I think I should put your website up.
Yes.
Where's it gone?
Shall I wait for you to do that?
I'm in the way here. Yeah. Well, if anybody's watching on a full screen, they should be able to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, by the way.
Hey.
Thank you for having me. I know what you want. Be staring at me all night long. You with those bedroom eyes that you don't try to disguise. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. Okay, you do it for me. I might like what I see, but you would never believe what I've got waiting home for me. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. How could I walk away, turn my back, never look back? You don't even compare. How could you even compete? You're not half of the man I got waiting home for me. So you'll be leaving here alone tonight. You'll be leaving here alone tonight. You'll be leaving here alone tonight. Before I walk away, there's just one thing I must say. When you're so self-assured, a girl like me can only get bored. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. You may be surprised, with you I won't be coming home tonight. Tonight, 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 tonight.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank God.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. So that's it. I shall will hopefully be back with you next weekend. I may not. There may be something else. I may
Be busy.
I can't say. No, no, I can't say. But if anybody's around in central Manchester on Saturday early evening, I'll be doing a solo slot at Matt and Fred's in Tib Street from 5:30 till 6:30. But failing that, I shall see you all shortly. And thanks for tuning in. You know where you can find us. And if you fancy taking part, getting involved, then drop me a line. And thanks again to you, brother.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, and good night.
Good night from him.
Good night from me, and good night from me. Oh, here we go.